Hi everyone, welcome to our data analytics technique series. So today we'll be talking about how to carry out survey and create questionnaires as a data analyst or data expert. As you can see, this is part 11 of this series. So if you've not watched the previous videos, it's very important that you go back to check on the previous videos. There are a lot of things that you will learn. So let's just go right into like today's discussion. So how to carry out surveys and questionnaire as a data analyst. So most times when you work as a data analyst, which you spoke about in the previous videos, so there are instances whereby your data is available. There are instances where your data is not available. For the most part, if you're working with a large organization, your data is available. However, even when working in large organization, there are sometimes they would need to carry out a new survey or they will need to collect their data. So remember how we mentioned the fact that when you collect the data yourself and you do the analysis, that is called primary data. So when the data is being collected by a different organization or by a different entity, and you do the analysis, that's called secondary data. So imagine you need to collect like a primary data. You need to gather the data yourself. So you need to find out a particular phenomenon, probably what you're interested in or what the stakeholder is interested in. The data is not available. The question here is how do I carry out a survey? So when you say carry out a survey, it's the same thing as data collection. It's very important that we say that the role of a data analyst is not primarily to collect data. So people who primarily collect data, they are called data enumerators, or data collectors, or whatever name that is related to that. Sometimes you might be the person in charge of ensuring that the questions asked is related to the data that is being collected. So one of the things you want to know in collecting data is, first of all, just the same way before you do your analysis, collecting your data yourself kind of give you this edge where you are able to like ensure that the data that is collected, you can answer it based on the question. So first of all, understand what is the general goal that we're interested in. What are we collecting this data? Ensure that is clearly written. Let's say, for instance, we just want to get customer feedback on a particular product that we launch as an organization. The next thing you want to think about is that, okay, what are like the smaller questions that we want to ask? So when I mean smaller questions, so this doesn't have to be like the survey questions. So it doesn't have to also be the kind of questions that you ask on the survey itself. So you have like an overarching goal, have one question. So out of that one question, since we want to know our customer feedback on a particular product, can we break this down into two or three more questions? So one of the questions you could think of is, oh, and which product have the highest sales? What are people likely to reviews? Is the review positive or negative, and so on and so on. Question, all of those questions. So you can't ask this question directly on survey, like who is likely to give a good review. So, but there are ways you can get to know who is likely to give a review. So from these specific questions that you ask, then you then devise questions that would be able to answer each of these specific questions. Let's say, for example, the second question, what would likely to give reviews? So if you want to know that, then you want to first of all ask questions related to the people who are filling the survey. For example, what is their current age? For example, what state do they stay? Another question could be what income do they earn? What kind of product do they buy? So three or five questions might be able to answer this your the second specific goals. So that is going to give you a guide as you create your questions or your questionnaire. So you think about your fixed objective and say, okay, what kind of questions can I ask that would answer this first question and I'll be able to get a better answer. So then you move on. So this is like moving on. We talked about, for example, if the question we're interested in asking is what products have the highest sales. So one of the questions you can ask is which product do you buy? We ask your customers. Mind you, it's best that you try to ensure you are not creating more open-ended questions. So when you have open-ended questions, and the customer says, "Oh, I buy product A, product B, product C," the person is writing it. That is more difficult. So one of the things, and that makes you probably go to like qualitative analysis. But for quantitative analysis, also just by the way, if you want the difference between quantitative and qualitative, I would advise you watch our previous video. So for quantitative analysis, most of the time you want to have close-ended questions, meaning there are options. A means product A, B means product B, C means product C. Other questions you could also ask that would help you answer this, um, which product have the highest sales, could be what's the amount you have spent on our platform. So you would think about them critically. Most times you have a team, you are contributing, and that is how you can have like very good questions. One of the things you want to do is when you have all the questions and answering all the goal, you want to ensure that you don't have redundant questions. You don't have questions that will bore out your respondents. So people that fill out a survey are either called respondents or people who filled out the survey. So one of the things just moving forward, other questions that you would that are standard for you to ask in a survey is to ask them about their demographics. So for example, even though it's not related to what you're interested in, I think it's just a standard practice to ask people their age, what is their sex or their gender, also their state of origin, their income, their tribe, race. It depends on where you stay. There might be more demographic questions. However, if you don't want to ask a lot of questions, you can limit the number of demographic questions that you ask. So this demographic question just gives you a beacon of people individuality for you to know if the same thing obtains for different age group. For example, you have Gen Alpha, Gen Z, you have millennials. So we want to know if there's a little bit of difference. One of the things also you want to know is that for age, people don't like to report their actual age. So there's something called age heaping. So people would, when you ask people, How old are you?" They say things like, "Oh, I'm 25, I'm 30, I'm 35." Hardly will you meet someone who would say, "Oh, I'm 31, I'm 33." So people like to round up their age. So most times when people ask age in survey question, it is asked in a categorical data. So you need to know who are the audience I am sending this question to. What do I think will be their minimum age? Also, do I want somebody that is below 18 to fill this survey? So your categories could be something like below 18. You could also have 18 to 30. You could have 31 to another age. So you could also do it based on like the generation classification, either Gen X, Gen Y, then you look at what age category as at the year that you are conducting the survey. So that is one of the things you could do. You just do like 5 years interval, say 20 to 24, 25 to 29, and things like that. So you those are like part of decisions that you would have to make as you create your survey questions. One of the things you also want to do, which is very important, is to do pre-test and post-tests. So what does this mean? So before you, let's say you want to send out your survey to 100 persons, before you send it out to the 100 persons, even though that's like the sample that you want to send out to, try to maybe sub-select, either even from your co-workers, first of all, send them a copy of the survey for them to fill out first of all, to see what was their own experience. So when people fill out a survey, that is pre-testing, you can get to know their feedback and say, okay, this survey, they understood this question well, or there were questions they did not understand, or it took longer, or people started getting tired of the questions, or they felt like the questions were just merely repetitive. So that's going to save you the stress of having to send out your questions to a large number of persons and finding out that, oh, you had mistakes in the question you asked, or the outlook wasn't okay. And also post testing. Let's say you're done with your survey, maybe you found a weird result, you can also send it to a smaller number. Like I said, send a survey out to few samples and see what the output would look like even on your own end. You could open it on different devices to see what the output would look like. Other things also is use user-friendly platform. There are a couple of user-friendly platforms other than Google Forms. So the Google Form is like one of the widely used platforms to carry out survey. You have Google Form, you have Kobo Collect, we have SurveyMonkey. There are so many platforms that are free. Some offer more functionalities, some even analyze your results for you even before you get out your data, and some are free service, some are paid. So just know how which one works for you and compare different platforms. Data privacy and informed consent. So one of the things you want to ensure is that as you collect data from people, you need to be thinking about, how do I ensure that this data is secured? How do I ensure that people are not, like, they are safe when they are trying to fill out the survey? So in your introductory part, you can add some statement and say, we are assuring you that we would ensure that there's privacy for this data. You also get a consent. Maybe they click a box to check a box that you get a consent from them that they are willing to fill this data to avoid proprietary issues, to avoid legal issues. On a small scale, this might not be necessarily needed, but you work for large organizations. As you fill bigger surveys, you notice that there is always like a consent section before you fill the original survey. So these are things that you can learn along the way as you continue in your career. But these are things we're just trying to mention so you can know, oh, I think I heard it somewhere and this is how it should be. Ensure your sample is representative. So if you have an organization, let's say it's for a company, you have say 100,000 customers, and you need to survey, like you need to know what are the customers' perspective. Peradventure, you then decide to send the survey to only a particular demographic, let's say just male or just female. You only send it to people in a particular location, or people who buy just one particular product. What eventually happens is that you'll be able to get a result, but your results will probably not be representative of the whole population. In this sense, population is like not a population of a country, but the entire like place that you're trying to cover. So it could be like if a country and different things like that. So ensure that your sample is representative, and that goes on to sampling error, goes on to standard, all of those things. So there are a lot of things to think about. There are people who are like statistician who can give you like some formulas or things to factor in as you get your sample. But also if it's like on a smaller scale, like we said, you are okay, you are okay with trying to, like, maybe just maybe for you're doing a personal project, and sometimes it's harder to get people to fill surveys. So some organizations ensure that there are incentives for people as they fill surveys. So that's that on that. Keep it short as you can. Don't try to ask so many questions that are not like necessary or not required. So that's one thing you need to ensure. If you can create a code book, um, create a code book if you can. So allows you to, the code book allows you to sort of like remember, like, oh, this is what the data is all about and things like that. So create a code book, keep the code book for just for somebody else if they want to use the data. And so that's all. Ensure you familiarize yourself what we explain. So check out more resources out there on YouTube and different platforms on how to carry out best surveys and things to mind when you are carrying out a survey. You get better at things as you do them more. Remembering that a journey of 1,000 miles, um, start with a step. In case you learned one or two things, kindly follow us on our YouTube channel, also on LinkedIn, and also on Instagram. So remember also you can always reach out to us via email at info@belonti.com. Thank you for your time.